America's most honored regional news network. This is the News at 9.
Coming up, Magazine Wars, a new publication all about Boston hit stands next week, but it won't be without competition.
Aerosmith's Steven Tyler has recorded a new tune with Carlos Santana, and he's coming out with a new line of clothing based on his stage apparel. You can read all about those stories and other celebrity gossip when a new magazine called Boston Common hits newsstands next Wednesday. Several Boston area competitors are poised to give it a run for the money. Business reporter Mont Fennell has more on Boston's magazine war.
This newsstand supervisor says with hundreds of magazines, capturing a reader's attention is a challenge. Newsstand magazine sales have been in a slow decline the last quarter century. In 2003, 7 of every 10 lost newsstand sales.
It's tough with a new magazine. You see magazines come, you see magazines go. They come, and if they don't catch on, they die.
In Boston, the hottest target market lately may be people in their 30s whose households earn more than $150,000 per year, people with homes approaching $1 million.
That's where the money is. That's where the future leaders are going to be, the future trendsetters.
37-year-old publisher and socialite Jason Bin has already launched 5 luxury magazines in various cities. Next week, Niche Media will debut Boston Common. The 350-page oversized glossy is all about high society, celebrity, pop culture, and luxury.
It's elegant and vibrant, that there's a great energy there, and I think that reflects what's happening in Boston right now.
Boston Common presents fashion, entertainment, nightlife, and leisure lavishly, with articles written by Greater Boston's who's who.
What does Danny Ainge expect for the Celtics this year, and what does Alan Dershowitz think about what's happening with the Supreme Court? I don't know about you, but I'd rather hear it from them than have someone else sum it up for me.
But it'll compete with similar upscale publications like Boston Magazine, The Improper Bostonian, The Industry, even suburban high-enders like Wellesley Weston Magazine.
Sometimes they tend to blur after a while.
Boston Magazine officials argue its reporters are credible journalists, not the celebrity writers Boston Commons hired.
We're serving the reader. We're less about serving the advertiser.
Dan Scully adds that Boston Magazine has grown revenue every year since 1998, and that total circulation of about 150,000 is stable.
On average newsstand sale per issue, we have a higher per issue sale than New York Magazine in what I would say a much smaller market than New York.
Now, Boston's magazine wars have become personal. Boston Common editor-in-chief Kim Atkinson is one of 5 employees lured away from Boston Magazine. She prefers to focus on editorial content and business strategy. For example, about half of Boston Common circulation, normally $5 an issue, will be mailed for free to about 35,000 affluent households.
We're able to know where our magazine goes, whereas a lot of other formats you don't know where it's going.
In Boston, Mont Fennell, NECN.
This is Fox 25 Morning News.
JC, you're going to want to pay attention here. New magazine coming to Boston. It is out today. It's called Boston Common Magazine. Joining me to my immediate left, Kim Atkinson. She's the editor of this publication. To her left, Glenn Kelly, trash-talking hoop player, who is also the editor of Boston Common. Congratulations to both of you on this big day.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, BB. The uniqueness of this magazine is it's not a newsstand magazine. It's not something that I can buy for $4.50 or $8.50 or whatever it's going to be. You guys are putting it out there for free, and you're targeting specific
Actually,
people.
let me just quickly correct you.
Ooh,
it
is
available on the newsstand. That's right.
Okay.
Yeah. So anyone can go out and get their hands on our new magazine. It's out today.
Write that down. Misinformation from Glenn Kelly, the publisher.
Come on now.
That's
that
one
is
in
not
your
true.
column, Glenn. Tell me about the magazine and tell me where it's targeted and what you guys are trying to do to create a niche here in Boston.
Our magazine is really kind of a society magazine. We have taken the biggest bold-faced names from the community and gotten them as contributors to our magazine. So you'll see names like Todd English writing on travel. Alan Dershowitz writes about legal issues. Chris Hines writes about his favorite date spots. And our own Mike Ross is writing about social issues around town. And so it's just a forum to kind of celebrate all the wonderful things that are happening in the city and the people who make it great.
As editor, if Mike Ross tries to get any of his anti-donut stuff in there, you take that right out.
I will make sure.
Beautiful.
Yes.
Now, the business model, Glenn's a little different than your average magazine. This isn't subscription-based. How does this work?
Well, how we handle our circulation It's a bit different than more your traditional magazine subscription-based format. What we do, we have 70,000 copies of the magazine per issue, 5 times a year. And what we really want to do is focus on the more of a targeted market format, if you could. So what we do is we identify select lifestyle.
A beautiful people crowd is what
Not so much beautiful people. You don't really want to go with that, but it's much more. What we'll do is we'll identify a market, direct mail it to them, and a combination of the newsstand, like Kim had mentioned as well.
And then
so
you're
we'll be
looking
on
for
select
the
newsstands.
advertisers that are in that magazine are hoping that by your direct marketing, they're going to get a bigger
Exactly. What it does is it targets that market segment a lot more precisely. So it lines up more with our editorial content as well as the advertising side, and that kind of makes for a better target.
Now, Kim, the obvious question is, in this small little community, our little city upon a hill, we have Boston Magazine, we have the Improper Bostonian, you've got the Weekly Dig. Do we need another magazine, and how are you going to compete with those guys?
Well, we don't really see this as being something that's a competition. We are unlike any other publication that exists in town, and I think there's a real need for covering all these great philanthropic events, society, all of the wonderful things that happen here. So it's just a really new kind of magazine that hasn't existed here before.
And the rumor is, Glenn, that Jean Levanchi is going to do a fashion column in this. Is that true or not?
We might have to talk about that one, VP.
Yeah, we're trying to get sales boosted up here. Now, am I going to call her on her quote in the Globe or not?
I don't know. I don't think so.
Glenn points this out to me. The Boston Globe, writing about Boston Common Magazine, points out that there is a fashion shoot story in this month's issue, and the models used were from New York. And you were quoted, Kim, as saying, we did that because the models from New York are prettier.
Well, let's first just say...
I don't think so, VV. Don't even.
We all know that everything that goes in the Globe isn't exactly what one says. I was misquoted. I think we have amazing, beautiful people in Boston, and we absolutely will be featuring them in the magazine.
I like to work in a Globe Dig, and if I can make the guests do it, it works out even better, Glenn. You understand that. So, again, if you're not on the pre-chosen list to get this magazine, how can people get it, and what are they going to see this month other than Steven Tyler?
You will see us on select newsstands around town. You will see us at a lot of society events around town. Things that are going to be talked about in the magazine. Kim is...
Well, we're going to cover home, food, sports, politics, fashion, everything that you need to know what's going on in Boston.
There's, again, you see Steven Tyler there. Looking very dapper, I might add, by the way.
Absolutely, and he has a new fashion line coming out in February that will be debuting at New York's Fashion Week. So
beautiful.
We have the inside scoop.
Kim Atkinson, congratulations. Glenn Kelly, congratulations. Thanks for pointing out that quote in the Globe, too, on your coworker.
Please.
I like that.
Center 5. Coverage you can count on.
Also ahead this morning, Boston's newest trendy magazine debuts with plenty of star power behind it. The guest of honor, why plenty of cash was being thrown around last night. Boston has a new magazine that promises to focus on upscale lifestyles in Boston. It's called Boston Common. A star-studded premiere party was held last night in the city. Inaugural cover boy Steven Tyler of Aerosmith encouraged guests to walk this way. Publisher also donated $100,000 to the Red Cross for hurricane relief.
Live from our UPN 38 studios, this is The Morning Show with Ted Wayman and Robin Hamilton.
Also, Steven Tyler is the cover man for a new Boston magazine, a preview of Boston Common. That is next.
Read all about it in today's Trend Tracker. There's a new magazine in Boston this week, but you won't see it on every newsstand. Starting this week, you will see a new 352-page magazine called Boston Common. And on the cover, the premiere issue, Steven Tyler. Now, you've heard about direct mail, but this magazine may be targeted even more precisely. Bottom line, the publisher is looking for readers with household incomes of $250,000 or more and live in million-dollar homes. Editor Kim Atkinson joins us on The Morning Show. Nice to see you.
You too.
This is fascinating. First of all, just from a business venture, Why Boston? They picked New York, D.C. Now why is this type of venture coming into the hub?
Well, Boston's considered one of the top 5 markets in the U.S. It's obviously a big metropolitan area, and we think that there are a lot of readers here who are hungry for a magazine like this.
Now, specifically, when we talked about direct mail, you guys are going for a specific reader. This is not going to be on every newsstand, but this is going to be mailed to homes, but people do have those large incomes, with these advertisers really wanting direct contact with these readers.
It's true. It's been a model that's been very successful for the company that is launching this magazine, Niche Media. They have other titles in New York, Los Angeles for Gotham Magazine, Los Angeles Confidential Magazine. You may have seen Hamptons Magazine. So it's a really great way to focus the magazine and get it into the hands of the tastemakers, the boldface names, the people you will read about in the magazine and who are very influential in the city.
Now, for 25 years or more, we've had Boston Magazine. This is going to be very different than Boston Magazine. Can you explain how?
It is very different. I think of it as something of a society magazine. And in being a society magazine, we really dedicate all of our pages to celebrating what makes Boston great. So these bold-faced names I mentioned, Danny Ainge, for example, writes himself and tells us what to expect from the Celtics. Alan Dershowitz weighs in on legal matters. So you'll see a lot of people who are very influential in the city, pages and pages of home coverage, fashion, food, philanthropy, everything you need to know about what's going on right now in Boston in a very celebratory way.
Now, a lot of people are excited about it, but it doesn't come without your critics. A lot of people say this magazine, Mark, maybe we can take a look at the cover again. We see Steven Tyler on board on the cover. Now, it's kind of editorial slash, there's ads in there because Steven Tyler is launching a line of clothes. He'd probably be talking about it in the magazine. Do you get kind of shots over the bow, if you will, from people saying, hey, you can't have editorial and advertising in the same magazine?
I think that's a misconception about this magazine in particular. The editorial and advertising is completely separate. There is no influence over what goes into our pages. But again, you'll see these tastemakers in town probably written about. I mean, they are what makes Boston great, and they are doing amazing things. So perhaps, for example, Debbie Greenberg of Louis Boston is one of our contributors. She writes about fashion trends, not particularly brands that you might be featured in her store. And of course, she also has a store. But there is no crossover between editorial and advertising. It's completely separate.
Now, you're talking about contributors. You have one of the hottest ones that we are very proud of here on the morning show. Brian Raffanelli is part of the premiership, correct?
That's right. He writes about philanthropy, as I said, and most people know that Brian puts on some of the most amazing parties in town, but he's also extremely involved in giving. And as you know, Boston has a great history of giving and giving back to the arts and the community. So he's someone you'll see writing about what's happening in town and who's going where and who's doing what great works.
Now, this will often be sent to people demographically. You're 5 issues a year, but you won't be on every newsstand, so not everybody will see it, correct?
Well, I think everybody who wants to see it will. It'll be a high market, high visibility newsstands, out-of-town news, some of the Hudson News. You'll see it at the airport. Anyone who's taking the shuttle back and forth between New York and Washington will find it easy to find there. So I think you'll see it making a bigger impact.
Kim Atkinson, the editor of the new Boston Common. We'll take one last look at the cover with Steven Tyler coming to a newsstand near you, or if you're in the right demographic, it might just end up in your post office box. All right, Kim Atkinson, thanks for being on the morning show.
Thank you.
All right, if you have any questions about this new magazine, Boston Common, you can send us an email. upn38.com is the website, and click on We've Got Mail.
Welcome back to Backstage. There's a glitzy and glamorous new magazine about to hit the stands called Boston Common that's brought to you by the same folks who are the founders of Ocean Drive, Gotham, and LA Confidential. These are folks that know how to put the gloss in glossy. They also know how to throw a party, as Backstage's senior party correspondents discovered.
When Hollywood comes to the hub, Bessie and I know how to find the party, especially because it's in our own backyard. But this is a big happening.
And we have the new magazine right here, Boston Common, with the fabulous Steven Tyler on the cover.
A great new magazine, big party to celebrate.
We
gotta
have to go cover it.
I'm going this way.
And I'll go this way.
Come on, get over it. How are you doing? Good to see you.
How are you?
Hey, does the song describe how you feel right now about how you look on that cover?
Like a new man.
You look great.
Thank you very much.
Why did you want to do it? Tell us about the experience.
Jason's a real good friend of mine, and any excuse for a little partying.
Yeah.
We've been off the road for a year, so I got to get my fill.
Yeah, and you're a good partier, by far.
Thank you, thank you.
What do you think about Boston being a good, loyal town, fan base for you all and for any celebrity?
Boston's always been good to Aerosmith, but I got a prediction. This Christmas, it will be wrapped deliciously on the cover of this magazine. Jason, talk to these people.
No, it's all about Steven.
Why did you want Steve on your cover?
Steven's he loves Boston, he lives in Boston, he's a major part of this community. The magazine celebrates the people and the places of the community, and besides that, he's an icon.
I need you in your best Boston accent to tell me why this is the hottest party or the hottest party going on.
Okay. The women are unbelievable. I mean, I'm used to like homeless women right down at Rosie's place, but the hottest woman here is Sarah Edwards.
Just a little bit of Hollywood, you know? You bring a little sparkle, Steven, to Boston.
That's what I live for.
Can you give us a ow? I can do it.
Ow!
CBS 4 is always on CBS4Boston.com.
Coming up ahead on CBS 4 News, Boston's magazine wars.
Boston Common is the latest, trying to make a big splash. Next, this newest magazine's goal and why it's such a risky bet. If you haven't noticed, the magazine scene is becoming pretty competitive around here these days.
Yeah, lots of competition for Boston Magazine. And as Mike Heideck explains, several new magazines are now coming on the market and competing for the very same audience.
With all the fanfare of a Hollywood premiere, Boston Common is on the market.
We really wanted to develop a magazine that really celebrates Boston in a new way.
This Fat Glossy is the newest entry into the high-end magazine market. Boston Common will be mailed for free to homes in affluent towns, and it'll also be sold on newsstands.
I mean, our magazines focus on getting the books into the consumers who have the highest disposable income, having the editorial content focus on upscale luxury products and services and people and places.
The magazine industry is tough. Many magazines are already competing for high-end readers or have some kind of regional focus. Consider that there are 12,000 magazines currently available, and 500 new ones are introduced each year. And only 1 in 5 lasts 3 years.
They're chasing something that really doesn't exist, you know, the buyer. Magazine sales as a whole are somewhat stabilized, not really growing.
But Boston Common's publishers are hopeful they can buck that trend.
We're completely different from any of the other magazines that are around town, and that's why we really wanted to do it.
Now, Boston Common isn't the only publication trying to become a habit for wealthy people. New England Home and Industry Boston are also trying. It's going to be interesting to see who survives. Mike Heideck, CBS 4 News.
It may arrive with a thud on your doorstep at 352 pages, but Boston Common magazine came in with a splash this week. John has more.
The wraps came off Boston Common, the magazine, Wednesday night as the cream of Boston's celebrity B-list flocked to the South End Cyclorama for the new publication's launch party. Not that notable names were completely absent from the festivities. News anchor for the Age's Natalie Jacobson was there, as were running buddies Steven Tyler of Aerosmith and Tom Menino of City Hall.
They did a story with me, and it was a pretty inclusive story, and I like the magazine, the first read of it.
Tyler admitted he had not read the magazine, but was pleased with it nonetheless.
I love it. Any excuse to throw a party or be a part of something bigger than the whole, I'm there.
And it was no mean feat to be bigger than the whole, considering that Volume 1, Issue 1 of Boston Common weighs in at 352 pages, roughly half of which are advertisements. The rest are generally devoted to stroking the power players of Boston and depicting the well-to-do doing what the well-to-do do. And don't forget local luminaries such as Boston Celtics honcho Danny Ainge, Hot Stuff chef Todd English, and legal lightning rod Alan Dershowitz, all of whom double as Boston Common correspondents.
I enjoy it because it's light. I can write with a kind of sense of humor and whimsy, and it's a different audience than I usually write for.
According to the Boston Common website, that audience owns a home valued at over $750,000, earns $250,000 a year, and charges $100,000 a year on credit cards. But editor-in-chief Kim Atkinson says Boston Common is not a celebrity magazine.
In Boston, the people who might be considered celebrities are scientists and academics, politicians, sports stars. So really what we're doing is just celebrating all of these people who make amazing things happen in Boston.
As for charges that the magazine is one big Cuisinart of ads and editorial content, Atkinson says nonsense.
Our advertising and editorial is completely separate. I have full control over everything that happens editorially in the magazine, and it's absolutely a brick wall here at Niche Media.
Of course, that's what they said about the Berlin Wall, too.
Talk about brick walls. I mean, we had a heck of a time having them let us cover this story. You know, they didn't want us really at the party. They wouldn't give us a copy of the magazine once we got there. They kept the press corralled. You weren't, you know, working for us that night. You were partying. Yeah, you were a mole. They kept us corralled in this little area, and then we don't want them in there. Them. I mean, what else is a debut like this for, if not to get the word out and have the media?
Did you send in your credit card receipt for $100,000 worth of it?
Well, I didn't go. I wasn't either invited nor did I go. But
well, the latest copy of Boston Magazine landed on my desk today, and I was surprised to see the front cover Steve Tyler. So now we all know a newspaper war is all about.
Is that true?
It's absolutely true. I mean, what is a newspaper war all about? We know what that's all about. But what about when you're competing for readers who make over $250,000 each? I guess you have to put the white gloves on, have a glass of port, challenge your competitor to a duel. I mean, I think that there's a really smart strategy behind this new magazine, and I think that when you're distributing it free in certain very Tony zip codes, and I think it's a real threat to Boston Magazine. And I think they realize it in terms of there's a limited advertising base.
I am really surprised by the people gnashing of teeth about the journalism and the ads. Who cares? It's one big sales thing. I mean, do you people read Lucky, Shop Magazine? That's all it is. I say go for it. They should embrace it. And here's the thing that I think they have to worry about in Boston because of the quirkiness of the celebrity. Really hone that Boston franchise. And I say go full throttle, get all the money you want, deliver it all to the wealthy people, and go for it. What's the big problem?
They're going to have to double.
This is where I insert, if all the kids jump off the Empire State Building, does that mean you should too? I mean, just because Lucky Magazine does it doesn't mean that Boston Common should do it. It doesn't mean any of them should do it. It's not right. It's not the right thing to do. You have to keep them separate.
If you set yourself up as that's what you do.
What I'm saying is that's what they deny they're doing. See,
I know,
that's
exactly.
the problem.
I'm with you on that.
If they just said, look, this is what we do. It's what a lot of other magazines do, so we're jumping off the Empire State Building. That's fine.
Let me be clear. I'm agreeing with you. I'm just saying that I wish they would embrace that and say it, because that's what Lucky Magazine and Shop Magazine does. They say, here is what we are to sell product. And I think that's what they should do. So that's what I'm saying. I'm not suggesting that they should cross the lines. I'm saying embrace what you are and just go ahead with it.
Look at my clothes. Do I look like I read Lucky and Shop Magazine?
No, sorry.
I don't know what this is.
First of all, if you go to the website, you saw that the actual original cover person was in the mock-up was going to be Ben Affleck. So maybe we should be grateful that it turned out to be Steven Tyler. We haven't seen a magazine like this in Boston, to be honest with you. There were magazine wars in the 80s with things like Boston Woman, Boston Business Magazine, and even New England Monthly. But that was about editorial content that Boston Magazine had to fend off. This is an advertising vehicle. There are no stories in there. Danny Ainge's preview of the Celtics season is 3 paragraphs long. James Levine's discussion of the BSO season is 4 paragraphs long. This is a magazine for you to read advertisements in, and I don't think we've quite seen anything like it in the market. I agree with Joe. I think it poses a serious financial threat to Boston Magazine.
The interesting thing about Kim Atkinson's interview there was she basically said there are no celebrities in Boston, so we have to do something different.
What are they going to do next time? They've already covered it.
I have
no idea. I mean,
in about 6 months, we all have a shot of the cover story. So
the interesting thing is, if you went to this party, it's like a social biosphere, because all the people at the party are in the magazine pictured at other parties around Boston. So it's this small floating social game that goes on.
They could be town and country for Boston. Town and country country is pictures of people going to Tony parties, few little articles in there in between, a great horoscope on the back. What's the problem?
The pictures were great. One thing I noticed, and it said to me that the magazine was being done out of town, was in a number of pictures, they had the names reversed. So they didn't have, from left to right who the people were. They had no idea who the people were.
Right.
But a couple like Beth Titel, they had wrong. She was at the end of the thing. So they just had them wrong. Of course, you just know that somebody had handed it to me. You can tell what they'd reversed it in one of those photo flip things, but had no idea who the people were, so the names just came out the way they were.
They also shot the fashion spreads down in New York, and
the models
they were quoted, the models are prettier in New York. So nothing like buttering up the people in the town before you launch your magazine.
The closest thing to journalism in there was this thing called The List, which, basically was a list, I'm not sure what it was a list of. I just know I'd like to be on it if there's any way that's possibly arranged.
And the contents line for the
if
list.
you buy an ad, maybe.
That's true,
The contents line for the list said, "Are you on it?"
Yeah.
And are they going to add to the list or detract from the list? I mean, how's that going to work?
Stay tuned.
Well, the issue is anybody who asked to be on the list can't be on the list. That's their first criterion.
I just want to make it clear that this is not sour grapes for me. I'm just saying embrace your fullness in your product sale and go with it. I think it could be a success if they did that.
All right. Well, the Boston Globe and parent company, the New York Times, announced this week.
Coming up, the stars share their secrets to that glowing skin, plus what rock singer Steven Tyler has in common with his model daughter. Coming up.
Extra, extra.
The stars were out in full force for publishing mogul Jason Bin, the man behind Gotham and LA Confidential, has launched 2 new magazines, Boston Common and Capitol File. And who better to rock the launch party for Boston Common than local Beantown favorite and cover boy Steven Tyler.
I love it. Look.
And the votes are in. Actress Ashley Judd is serving as the cover girl for Capitol File's inaugural issue.
Extra, extra.
From our UPN 38 studios, this is The Morning Show with Ted Wayman and Robin Hamilton.
Also, our efforts to help end breast cancer get a boost. Yes, actress and supermodel Liz Hurley joined us on The Morning Show.
The effort to end breast cancer just got a high-profile boost.
And men in the newsroom and in our booth are going to be listening a little more closely this morning. That's because actress and supermodel Liz Hurley was in town recently to help in our efforts in advance of this weekend's Making Strides walk. And our trend tracker, Kim Atkinson, was there and has the story.
I'm Kim Atkinson, editor-in-chief of Boston Common magazine. We're here today at Saks Fifth Avenue for a full day of events with Estee Lauder, Mrs. Evelyn Lauder, Elizabeth Hurley, in honor of Breast Cancer Awareness Month. So join us inside.
Please join me in welcoming Elizabeth Hurley. 2 of my girlfriends, both in their 30s and both mums, both developed breast cancer and both had to have mastectomies. They're both survivors today. But it brought home to me just how unbelievably close we are to this disease. Because, everyone we know has somebody who could potentially be affected because, we all have female friends at the very least. Most of us are lucky enough to have mums or daughters, cousins, sisters. And so I really thought this is actually something I'd really love to throw myself behind.
The reason that we're here in Boston is to bring awareness to the front pages and to women's mind that if that cancer could be detected early, that they have almost 100% chance of cure. So that's what this is all about.
One shouldn't be scared and shouldn't be embarrassed about seeking help if you think there might be something wrong and actually looking for something that's wrong, because there's a phenomenally strong chance you'll survive if you find it. We want people to, if they're at all scared, to run to their doctors in order to live.
4, 3, 2, 1, switch!
We get a great feeling, I think, of sort of togetherness from everybody who put the event together, and I think it takes a lot of work to change all those light bulbs, and also everyone that comes out, I think they really feel, wow, I'm really part of trying to, well, I guess trying to save you know, big portions of the female race. I mean, it's important, really important.
Good job, Elizabeth Hurley. And we'd like to remind you to join us this coming Sunday, October 16th, for the Making Strides Against Breast Cancer Walk. You can log on our website to get all the information, upn38.com, to find out more on the walk. We've done it for years out at the Hatch Shell. We got men, women, sisters, cousins, brothers, friends. 30,000 people expected Sunday on the Esplanade. Hope you'll join us.
We know her as the prim and proper Brie Vandekamp on the hit show Desperate Housewives. But now the actress who plays her is showing her sexy side. Marlboro's own Marsha Cross is back home helping the Hub's newest magazine kick off the holiday season, and News Center 5's Mary Saladna spoke to the cover girl this evening.
Liz on Wisteria Lane, she's a desperate housewife, but here in Boston, she is the toast of the town. Marsha Cross has come home for the holiday weekend, and she's being celebrated by family, friends, and plenty of fans. Marsha Cross is used to posing for the cameras, but says this smile is real. She's back among friends in Massachusetts, and coming home is even sweeter when you've got a hit show.
It's really wonderful. I think that's the most meaningful place to be. I'm looking out now and I'm seeing friends I went to high school with, friends I grew up with. My mom's in there somewhere, my family, so it's fantastic.
And her inner circle couldn't be happier for her.
She's really nice. She loves the kids. She's a great person.
Fun to watch her on Sunday nights.
Fun to watch her, and our friends love to see her on TV also.
This Wang Center gala in Cross's honor was thrown by Boston Common magazine. Cross graces the cover of the holiday issue. The party comes one day after a high-profile episode for Cross in which Brie discovers the dark truth about her former fiancé, George. In real life, Cross is happily engaged. This trip home, a chance to introduce her new man to the family.
My mother had met, but not all of my family, so now he's met everybody except one niece.
How did it go?
He's in. My sister met him and said, "Where have you been?"
And while Marsha Cross says family is the best thing about being home, there's also the food.
Legal seafood, clam chowder, it was great.
As for what's next for this desperate housewife, well, it's back to Hollywood to film more episodes, but then in a few weeks, she's back home again. Cross says she always spends Christmas with family here in the Bay State. At the Wang Center in Boston, I'm Mary Saladin, News Center 5.
And to see more of Marsha Cross and the other ladies of Wisteria Lane, you can catch Desperate Housewives every Sunday night at 9 o'clock. And that's followed by Grey's Anatomy and News Center 5 at 11.
Plus, Marsha gets cross-examined by our A.J. Calloway.
Was it like love at first sight?
From her wedding secrets to the storyline she begged Housewives producers to kill.
Extra takes you there.
Extra's taking you to Boston now with Marsha Cross, and she's giving Extra the exclusive scoop on the latest Desperate Housewives death. A.J. Calloway was with Marsha for her Beantown homecoming.
A stunning Marsha Cross took Boston by storm last night. She has me blushing. You can't have me blushing. And only Extra can take you to the Desperate Diva's emotional return to her native New England, where she was honored by Jason Binn's Boston Common magazine.
My dad was here, and I told him he didn't have to come to anything except my wedding. And then I looked after I talked to the crowd, and there he was, and that was pretty cool.
What's also pretty cool, Marsha gracing the holiday issue of Boston Common magazine, getting playful and provocative in a sultry new photo spread.
I love doing shoots where you get to sort of play and something else comes out in me that's, you know, much more sort of fun and vivacious.
In the magazine, Marsha opens up about her picture-perfect life with her fiancé, businessman Tom Mahoney. Was it like love at first sight?
There's just something about him. I don't know, I just knew.
And the gushing bride-to-be broke some baby news, telling me she can't wait to be a mom.
I just want to make a nest.
And her dream wedding is all about the guests.
Tonight, I felt like, oh my God, this must be what it feels like to get married, because it was like one hug after another of all these people that I've known all my life and love. And I think that's my idea of what a wedding will be like, to have all your near and dear ones in the same room. And
Back on Wisteria Lane, Marsha's alter ego is not so lucky in love. This past Sunday, the tightly wound Bree sat and watched as her ex-fiance died after an overdose. A scene Marsha tried to fight.
I have to confess that I begged Mark Cherry in no less than 3 meetings to not let that happen.
Life on Wisteria Lane. And don't miss Marsha on the cover of Boston Common magazine on newsstands now.
Coming up, the incredible shrinking bride, the mom whose fat melted away. Plus, Marsha gets cross-examined by our A.J. Calloway.
Was it like love at first sight?
From her wedding secrets to the storyline she begged Housewives producers to kill.
Extra takes you there.
Extra's taking you to Boston now with Nicolette's desperate housemate, Marsha Cross. And Extra has the exclusive scoop on the latest death on Wisteria Lane. Our A.J. Calloway is hanging with Marsha Cross for her Beantown homecoming.
A stunning Marsha Cross took Boston by storm. She has me blushing. You can't have me blushing. And only Extra can take you to the Desperate Diva's emotional return to her native New England, where she was honored by Jason Binn's Boston Common magazine.
My dad was here, and I told him he didn't have to come to anything except my wedding. And then I looked after I talked to the crowd, and there he was, and that was pretty cool.
What's also pretty cool, Marsha gracing the holiday issue of Boston Common magazine, getting playful and provocative in a sultry new photo spread.
I love doing shoots where you get to sort of play, and something else comes out in me that's, much more sort of fun and vivacious.
In the magazine, Marsha opens up about her picture-perfect life with her fiancé, businessman Tom Mahoney. Was it like love at first sight?
There's just something about him. I don't know, I just knew.
And the gushing bride-to-be broke some baby news, telling me she can't wait to be a mom.
I just want to make a nest.
And her dream wedding is all about the guests.
Tonight, I felt like, oh my God, this must be what it feels like to get married, because it was like one hug after another of all these people that I've known all my life and love, and I think that's my idea of what a wedding will be like, to have all your near and dear ones in the same room. And
back on Wisteria Lane, Marsha's alter ego is not so lucky in love. This past Sunday, the tightly wound Bree sat and watched as her ex-fiance died after an overdose. A scene Marsha tried to fight.
I have to confess that I begged Mark Cherry in no less than 3 meetings to not let that happen.
Life on Wisteria Lane. And don't miss Marsha on the cover of Boston Common magazine on newsstands now.
From Boston back to the Big Apple, our A.J. Calloway has been a busy boy.